big city traffic bustle and raise your hand if in the past 24 hours you've had a home-cooked meal or perhaps felt the comfort of your in-home heating system. Raised hands across the board, but seldom does one realize the importance of feasible energy in these simple life luxuries. Hi, I'm Raquel Reese. This is Natalie Mitchell, Jessica Brito, and Avril Lemieux, and we're here to answer the pressing question of, when considering the overall benefits and negative effects of hydraulic fracturing, to what extent do the United States allow the potential expansion of the industry? To first make you understand what hydraulic fracturing truly is, here's Natalie with some background information on the topic. Natalie?
Hydraulic fracturing, better known as fracking, is a process of drilling horizontally into the Earth's crust in order to extract natural gas from shale rock formations. It's become increasingly more common in the United States due to the need for sustainable energy and the abundance of shale rock formations in the United States, such as this one. Although many people see the benefits of fracking, many people oppose it due to the negative effects that it has on the environment, local government and infrastructure, as well as public health. These states, shown in dark gray and black, are at most risk to these negative effects due to the large amount of fracking wells within them.
Now it's Jessica with some opposing views on the controversial topic of hydraulic fracturing. Jessica?
Multiple skeptics argue that if the United States makes modifications to fracking, that it will only lead in political chaos. They believe in alternate possibilities such as nuclear energy and keeping fracking the same.
Now, I ask you to look past these negative views and look into what's the best possible option for the success of America. Research on fracking must be supported in the United States in order for strong regulations to be developed. These regulations will allow for the government to gain authority over the fracking, the environment to be preserved, and ensure the future prosperity of America. Avril will begin with the politics of fracking. Avril?
According to Charles Davis, a professor of political science, there are still many opportunities to research fracking. Some of these include the political, economic, and cultural factors that shape fracking policies. Diving deeper into the political aspect of this, right now the state and the federal government have opposing views on what fracking policy should be. Instead, they should come together because that is the only way that they will create the best possible fracking policies. Kim D. Raquet, a researcher and lecturer of anthropology, shows his skepticism on fracking when he says that the health implications of fracking are still being researched. It is then proposed that government-funded research should be done, which will then lead to the government being able to create regulations which will stop the harmful effects of fracking on people.
Now, to represent environmentalists, as Jessica looks through the hydraulic fracturing through the environmental lens, is Jessica. Jessica?
Fracking has caused copious amounts of methane to be released into the air, thus causing air pollution. But the EPA, otherwise known as the Environmental Protection Agency, conceives that if the United States is able to implement regulations to improve fracking, then it is able to reduce that air pollution by 95%, thus reducing the ground level ozone. The U.S. Department of Energy is also considering creating panels that will thus create and discuss these regulations that will in turn protect wildlife, reduce air pollution, and reduce water contamination. And if there are specific regulations on well structure, then land quality overall will improve because chemicals from fracking fluids will not be released into water and air resources.
Now it's Natalie with the future aspect of the issue. Natalie?
The biggest threat of the fracking process on human health and the environment is the toxic chemicals being used. Thus, Jingning Chen and his colleagues with the U.S. Department of Public Health suggest that fracking companies include a full disclosure of the chemicals that they're using, because this will fill knowledge gaps and create a better understanding of these chemicals and their effects. This is a big step in making fracking a safer process because with this better understanding, U.S. government agencies can create stricter and more effective regulations that will benefit the future of fracking. Not only will it become a safer process, but it will continue to be a sustainable energy source, as explained by Valeria Tommy, who is a lawyer who specializes in gas and oil law, when she estimates that by 2030, U.S. is expected to become the world's largest shale oil producer, which can be directly benefited from hydraulic fracturing. This goes into increasing the U.S.'s gross domestic product, as well as decreasing their energy dependency on other countries, which will benefit the U.S. economy in years to come.
Now's Natalie to example the bigger picture of the issue.
Diving past the issue of fracking and the energy needs of the United States, we must focus on climate change and global warming, because this is a pressing issue in the world today. With these regulations, we must focus on preventing this furthering and getting worse in the future, because this cannot continue and it will get worse over time. Also, we must focus on the energy needs of the United States, because this will also be implemented in the future, as there is a need for sustainable energy.
Now, to return to the alternate solutions that just weren't as strong as making regulations on fracking, is Jessica. Jessica?
With the skeptics that disagree with fracking, they have a point with nuclear energy, for it does produce a large sum of energy and does not create immediate environmental effects. But nuclear energy is very unstable. It causes toxic radioactive waste, causes multiple damages to the environment and to human health, and with the possibility of keeping fracking the same, they do have a point with how fracking causes great economic revenue and how it is very accessible. But this ignores the fact that fracking is very harmful to the environment, causes multiple risks to human health, and causes disagreements in the political sense. With this, our solution is much more feasible, for it does not have as many cons as these two opportunities, thus making it more legible to actually occur.
Avril will continue with an overall wrap-up of the argument. Avril?
No matter what one's stance on fracking is, everyone can agree that the world needs a sustainable energy source. In order to do this, we must think like this person here, in terms of regulations, because with regulations to fracking, the government will become more involved with creating policies. The environment will not be harmed by dangerous chemicals, and the U.S. will have future success. If we put into place this solution, then the U.S. will become prosperous. People will not be harmed by harmful air emissions, and the environment will not be damaged by chemical and air emissions.
In terms of limitations and implications to our resolution, it does not account to deforestation, which is one major environmental concern involved with hydraulic fracturing. In addition to this, there's a chance of failure with research studies, as the conclusions may not point to what the government would like to see, and the time will leave time for other additional problems with environmental while the research takes place to occur. Therefore, government involvement will be essential, and we must find reliance in the fracking companies to disclose the chemicals being used. Funding must be provided from outside sources, along with researchers from environmentalists and scientists in general. Now is the time to investigate, because it is the curiosity of everyday citizens that will inspire government action. Think in terms of your neighbors, your friends, and your government, because protection is our #1 goal.
Raquel, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
I evaluated fracking through the environmental lens, and as you can see, there are many environmental concerns to this industry. These including the effects on animals, the effects on air pollution, and the effects on water contamination. However, as I collaborated with my peers and found what their research studies were pointing to, I saw that fracking wasn't all bad. In specific, Jessica, she provided me with the economic view of the issue, and she showed how fracking benefits the U.S. economy overall. Therefore, I found that fracking does not only, although it impacts the environment negatively, it impacts our economy positively, and therefore it cannot be rid of completely. Thus leading us to our resolution that caused me to think completely differently about my original research studies. Our resolution, as you know, was to create regulations based on research to fracking. Originally, I was evaluating the issue as to completely disband fracking from the United States. As I continued to evaluate the issue, looking through my peers' evaluations, I read to a resolution in which I found that fracking can benefit the U.S. overall.
Thank you. Natalie, what was the strongest counter-argument to the solution or conclusion your team identified, and why?
So we identified that nuclear energy would be the best counter solution to fracking because with it, the U.S. will not experience the negative and harmful effects of fracking, but the reason that we did not choose it was because nuclear energy, as explained by Jessica, causes a lot of problems with the environment as well as human health. So instead we decided to go with our solution, which was to have more research on fracking because that will create better regulations in the future for fracking.
Thank you. Jess, how did the group decide to include Averil's perspective, lens, and conclusions into the overall presentation?
As you know, Averil's perspective was the political lens, and with this, we incorporated it by discussing how government officials will be able to put the money into the research to make these regulations, and how they are the deciding factor of how these regulations will be put into play to help improve fracking.
Thank you. Avril, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
So, when I was looking into my research, it became obvious that there were two very different sides on what people believed that fracking should happen about fracking policies. There was that it was good because it helps the economy, but it's also bad because it could cause environmental damage. But when we collaborated and I looked at Raquel's research, it helped me to see how much more damage there was to the environment than it was made out to be when I did my research. And it showed how much more, it showed how important it was that we create this solution in more research and regulations.